Do you remember sometimes when you've seen a card in the anime and then being disappointed that the actual card doesn't have the actual effect that was shown in the show? Well, now there seems to be an interesting series of retrains, and I'm digging it. Recently, new anime cards have been announced. The two cards I want to talk about are Spell Card Monster Reborn and Spell Card Soul Exchange. I actually made a short video talking about the Spell Card Monster Reborn, but I wanted to talk about it again, since they released a similar one. These two new cards attempts to retrain classic cards that have an effect that are more similar to how it was used in the anime and manga. The card Spell Card Monster Reborn is a quick play spell card that you can only use once per turn, and just like the name implies, you can target one monster in either player's graveyard and special summon it to your side of the field. However, this time it cannot attack nor activate its effect during the turn you activate this card. It references the duel between Yugi and Pandora. I mean, the artwork is pretty much taken from that duel. It also references the Battle Silly rules, where players could use any spell cards as a quick play spell card. Then there's the new card with a similar name, Spell Card Soul Exchange. As you can imagine, it mimics the Soul Exchange from the manga. The effect reads that immediately after this effect resolves, you'll have to tribute summon one monster, and if you do, it cannot be tributed at this turn. And when you do, you can tribute a monster or monsters your opponent controls, even though you don't control them. Then if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, which is pretty much after you activated the effect, you have to activate the next effect. Your opponent can apply this card's previous effect, but you can only use it once per turn. So technically, either player can tribute summon from either side of the field, just like the Soul Exchange from the manga. Although in the manga and in anime, it was mostly Kaiba using other people's monsters to tribute summon, but I have to say, I really like these new cards. Even if they aren't that actually good in the competitive sense, I do enjoy that they try to mimic what happens in the anime and manga. Nowadays, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a lot of crazy effects, so printing cards that are more in line with the manga effect or anime effect isn't that far-fetched anymore. They won't immediately break the game, or they'll be just mediocre cards that have fun little anime moments in them. I also enjoy the artwork on these cards. They mimic the Kazuki Takahashi style very neatly. Now these cards make me excited for possible new retrains of older cards. A lot of them were nerfed when they were released in the TCG, but now there is a possibility of those anime effects being translated into the actual card game. If these cards are just the beginning, then there's a few cards I would like to see being remade. For example, there's the card Double Spell. In the TCG, you have to discard one spell card, then target one spell card in your opponent's graveyard, and then you can use it as one of your own, directly into the spell and trap zone. However, in the anime, you could target any number of spell cards from your opponent's graveyard that were used the previous turn. Obviously, a pretty powerful effect, but very situational, since it does depend on what your opponent uses. Other cards that could be remade too would be Graceful Dice or Skull Dice from Joey. Graceful Dice multiplies while Skull Dice divides attack and defense points. And since battle tricks are pretty much useless now, I'd say it's a pretty safe choice to remake them. In the TCG, they just use a dice and multiply it by 100, which is a bit disappointing. They could technically put both effects on a single card, and I doubt it will make any difference. And now that I think about it, if they continue making a series with the trap cards too, then one of my favorite trap cards, Grave Robber, deserves a new card, one that follows its manga counterpart. In the TCG, you can only grab a spell card from your opponent's graveyard, and you take damage if you're using it, but the manga version allows you to take any kind of card from your opponent's graveyard. And the fact that it is a trap card makes it pretty slow for the modern metagame, so I kinda doubt that it will make any kind of difference. In any case, if this is an indication of how they're gonna make new cards now, based around the anime and manga, then I'm pretty excited for the future. Maybe now we'll be able to recreate way more accurate anime decks now. While the effects in the manga and anime were kinda overpowered, I think they're pretty fun too. With that being said, feel free to mention any other cards that you feel needs a remake. And it doesn't specifically need to be about Duel Monsters. Any other Yu-Gi-Oh series have cards that deserve some remake, honestly. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.